What's up everyone? In this video, we're going to discuss how to configure Payload CMS's Redirects plugin. Before we get started though, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and getting notifications so you never miss when I release a video about Payload CMS, Next.js, and more. If you'd like to see the code that I use in this video, there's a link to the repo in the description. Now, let's dive in. Redirects are a crucial part of any website because it allows you to point users to any part of your website without having to edit a URL. For example, if you have a blog post that is no longer active, but you have a similar post that users would likely still enjoy, you can remove the original blog post and use the Redirects plugin to point the original URL to the new blog post. You can do all this without changing every instance of that old link throughout your website. Redirects are an important part of SEO and website usability as well. Neither users nor search engines like broken links, so making sure you have a strong redirect strategy is key to keeping both users and Google happy with your site. The Redirects plugin works by adding a redirects collection to your config, which then allows you to specify your redirects from one URL to another. In this video, we'll go over how you can configure your Redirects plugin and how to actually utilize these redirects on a Next.js front end. To get started, you'll need to install the plugin using npm add at payloadcms/plugin redirects. Make sure that this installs at the same version as your other Payload CMS dependencies so you don't have any version mismatch errors. So I can go over to my package.json and I see my plugin redirects dependency is at 3.24. So I can set that back to 3.18 and run npm I. Now you can head over to your config file and import at the top of your file, import redirects plugin from Payload CMS plugin redirects, which we just installed. You'll then need to scroll back down to your plugins array, and underneath our SEO plugin, we'll add redirects plugin and open up this empty object and start configuring. If you don't already have a plugins array, you'll need to create one in your build config like this. The first option we'll configure is the collections option. So I can type in collections. This will need to be an array of the collections you'd like to populate the redirect to field for each redirect. This is a relationship field that uses your documents as the options for a redirect. By default, you'll have the option to set either a relationship to another page or a custom URL to point to somewhere other than your included documents. So we only have our one posts collection, which we'll use here. Next, we'll configure the redirect types array, which allows you to select what kind of redirects you want to use. The typical options here are 301, 302, 307, and 308 redirects. If you don't set this option, Payload CMS doesn't include anything by default. 301 and 308 are handled the same way. These are permanent redirects to be used when you move an old URL to a new one. The primary difference between 301 and 308 is that 308 tells the browser and search engines that while the URL has moved, the method used to interact with the URL should remain the same. If the browser used post to access the original URL, it should continue to use post for the new URL. A 301 redirect would allow a post request to get changed to a GET request. 302 and 307 are handled the same way too. These are temporary redirects to be used until you restore an old URL. If you plan on taking a page down in order to make an in-depth change to it, and you want to point people to a different domain while you work, you'll want to use a temporary redirect. Just like the difference between 301 and 308, a 302 redirect will allow a post request to be changed to a GET request, while a 307 would require that the browser and search engines to use the same type of request when opening the URL. To add the types of redirects you'd like to use, you can set the redirect types to be an array of string values representing the different redirects we discussed. For us, we'll just use 301 and 302. And so we can start to see what this looks like by running npm dev, loading up our admin dashboard and going to redirects. And if we create a new redirect, we can see here we have the from URL, the to URL, and the redirect type, which is what we just set in our payload config. You also have the ability to override any part of the redirects configuration, just like you would in any other collection. For example, if you wanted to include the option to deactivate a redirect, you could include a new checkbox field by adding overrides, then type in fields, and we're going to take our default fields and let this return an array where we have our type checkbox, name set to active, and default value set to true. And then after the default value, we'll want to also include our default fields using the spread operator. So if I save this and open our redirects, I can create a new redirect and I see a new active checkbox. Now, what if we wanted to move our redirects collection to a different part of our admin UI? So let's say navigation. We can also use overrides for that by adding under fields the admin property group, and we'll put in navigation. So now when I save this, we see redirects moves down to the navigation group as well. The last configuration option you have available is the redirect type field override, which allows you to override anything on the redirect types option you configured before. If you want to change how the label is displayed, for example, you can simply add the redirect type field override and then open a new object with label where we'll just do redirect type overwritten. And then when we save this and come back to our redirects and create a new one, we can see that we have overwritten the redirect type. Now, we don't want to change that label, but maybe we want to add a description. So we can do admin and then do a description, and we can see that we have redirect type as the field label again, and then a new description field here. And just so we don't have nonsense, we can put something like choose the type of redirect to use. Now that we have everything configured, we can work on rendering the redirects on our Next.js front end. First, we'll need to create a few helper functions, a component, and a hook in order to make this happen. Let's start with the helper function. In our utilities folder, we'll add a get document ts file and a get redirects ts file. In the get document ts file, we'll import type config from payloadTypes. We'll also import config promise from our payload config, get payload from payload, and unstable cache from next/cache. Next, we're going to define a new type called collection, which takes the key of config collections. We'll use this type to assign to a collection argument later on so we can have our helper function get all types of documents. Now create a new async function called get document. This function will take a collection argument, a slug argument, and a depth argument. The collection argument will be assigned the type collection, slug will be assigned string, and depth will set equal to 0 as default. Once we open the function, we can initialize payload by doing a new const called payload and await get payload with config being set to config promise. We'll then create another new const called page and set that equal to await payload.find. Then we'll set our collection, our depth, and then a where query where we check if slug is equal to slug. Lastly, we'll return the first document from the response by using return page.docs and the first index. Below the get document function, we'll export a new const called get cached document and set this equal to our collection with the collection type and our slug with the string type. Now, my IDE tried to add these curly braces here with its autocomplete, but I'm going to remove those and just use the arrow function that'll point directly to unstable cache. Now, to give myself more space, I put it on a new line. Now, we'll use an async function for our get document, which will take a collection and a slug. We'll then include our key parts, which will be our collection and slug. And we'll do an options object, which will take tags, and then we'll take our collection underscore slug. Now let's move on to our second helper function, getRedirects. At the top of this file, we'll import config promise from our payload config. We'll also import get payload from payload, and again, unstable cache from next/cache. We'll need to export an async function called getRedirects with a depth argument defaulted to 1. And we can open up this function and initialize payload again by using const payload equals await get payload config promise set to our config argument there. Next, we'll use payload.find to return all our redirect documents. We can use const docs redirects and set this equal to await payload.find with our collection being our redirects. We'll also include the depth value from the argument, and we'll set pagination to false. We'll also want to check a where query where active is equal to true. So we're only returning redirects that are active. We can then return these redirects. Lastly, we'll use an unstable cache function again. We'll export a new const called get cached redirects. We don't need any arguments here, so we can just lead this straight to an unstable cache, which will take an async function, and we'll point that to get redirects as a function, add in our key parts, which is just redirects here, and then another options object where we'll have tags set to redirects as an array. Now let's move on to the hook we need to create. Since we're planning on using SSG for our website, we need a way to purge our cache and revalidate the redirects when they're created or edited. That's where our revalidateredirects.ts file will come into play. In our collections directory, we'll add a new directory called hooks, and we'll create a new TypeScript file called revalidateredirects.ts. This is the file we'll use to revalidate our redirects after a change has taken place. So let's import type collection after change hook from payload. Then we'll import revalidate tag from next cache, and now we'll export a new const called revalidate redirects, assign collection after change hook to it, and set that equal to an async function and open up the function. For the arguments, we're going to need our doc argument and our payload object from our rec object. If you'd like to have a log whenever a change is made, you can use payload.logger.info and put in something like revalidating redirects, but that's entirely optional and up to you. Since I typed it in, I'll leave it. You can then use the function revalidate tag redirects, which will then purge the cache for any document using the redirects tag option, like we just set up in get cached redirects. You can then return doc. Next, we'll head back over to our payload config, and in our redirects plugin config and under fields, I'll add a hooks option. Then we can add after change and open up an empty array and import our revalidate redirects into it. Lastly, we can create our redirects component. In our components directory, we'll create a new redirects folder and then create an index.tsx file. At the top of the file, import type React from React and our post from our payload types. We only have a post collection right now, but you'll want to include any collection you want to use with redirects. Now let's import our helper functions. We'll import get cached document from our utility folder, and we'll do the same thing with import get cached redirects from its file. The last things we'll need to import are not found from next navigation and redirect. We'll use the not found function to return a not found page if a redirect isn't found, and the redirect function to manage our actual redirects. Next, we'll set the type we'll be using for our redirect function with interface props with disable not found being set to Boolean and takes a URL as a string. Now we can create the function we'll be using for our redirects. We'll export a new const called redirects and assign it the type react.fc props and set it equal to async disable not found and URL. And then we'll open up an arrow function to fetch our redirects. We'll create a const called redirects and set it equal to await get cached redirects. And we'll use two sets of parentheses here. For those unaware, the two sets of parentheses are used when you're dealing with a function that returns another function. The second set of parentheses immediately calls the returned function. We can then find our redirect from the response of get cached redirects and store them in a const called redirectItem. To do this, we can set this const equal to redirects.find. Then we'll look for our redirect, use an arrow function to find redirect from, and check that it's equal to URL. If there is a redirect item, we'll check then if that redirect item to field exists with a URL. And if there is, we'll use the redirect function to just return our redirect item.to.url. We'll then define a let variable called redirect URL and assign the type string to it. And now we can check other ways a redirect can be done. If the type of redirect item.to.reference.value is equal to a string, then we'll check what collection the redirect item is in and what the ID should be. We'll create a new const called collection and set that equal to redirect item.to.reference.relation to check what the collection is, and then another new const called ID and set that equal to redirect item.to.reference.value. From there, we can create a new const called document to get the document this redirect item is related to. Set const document equal to await get cached document with the second set of parentheses there and set the type as post. Now, we only have a post collection, but say you have a page collection, you can also include the page type there using the union operator, but we'll keep it set as post. And here in the first set of parentheses, we'll need to pass in a collection and an ID in order for this to work. Underneath document, we can set redirect URL equal to first check redirect item.to.reference.relation to is not equal to pages. Now, of course, we don't have this pages collection yet. Eventually in this project we will, so we'll include this check just in case and to future-proof our project. If this is true, then we'll want to use the relation to as the first part of our URL. So in that case, we will then use a / and then redirect item.to.reference.relation to. Then we can include our document slug to close it off, like so. Now we can come down. We'll then run an else check here to set redirect URL equal to first check if redirect item.to.reference.relation to does not equal pages, which again does not exist yet, but will in the future. If that's true, then we will use a / and use redirect item.to.reference.relation to use the collection in the URL. If it's false, we'll just use an empty string. At the end of that, we can then do another / and then check type of redirect item.to.reference.value equals an object. And if it does, we will use our redirect item.to.reference.value, the slug of our document, else we'll just return an empty string. Then finally, if redirect URL exists, then we'll call redirect URL. Then after that, if disable not found exists, we'll return null. And lastly, we'll return not found if all of that is false. Let's test it out in our posts. First, we can navigate to our app folder, Frontend, posts, and then our slug, and then the page.tsx file in there. At the top of this file, we'll import our redirects component from components/redirects, and then we'll go into our default function here at the top and include a new const URL after our slug const URL. For our post, we're going to set our URL const to be equal to posts and concatenate slug to the end of it. Now, after our post const down here, if there is no post, we can return our redirects with our URL as the prop there. This checks if there is no page to return, and if there isn't, it will check if there is a redirect to return or not. If not, it will return the not found page. We also want to include this for valid pages that we want to redirect. So in our return statement, we'll go below our fragment here and use our redirects component with our URL prop and then disable not found. With this, it'll check if there is a redirect for the current URL. If there is, it will return the new page. If there's not, we set disable not found, which means the not found function will not be called in our redirect component. So the current page will show. Now let's try it out. We'll create a new redirect by going to our redirects collection. We'll start with a custom URL where we'll set it to my YouTube channel, and we'll use our posts blog 1 slug here in the from URL and set our redirect type to be 301. So when I hit save, and then we navigate to localhost posts blog 1, it'll redirect to my YouTube channel instead. Now let's delete this redirect. Now let's try redirecting to a collection item. We'll stay in our redirects collection. We'll create a new redirect that will come from posts blog 2. It'll be an internal link that points to blog 1, and we'll use a 301 redirect type. If I hit save, and then we come here to type in blog 2 instead of blog 1, we'll see that it redirected to blog 1. Now, if we wanted to deactivate this, we could by just hitting the active button, making that false, and saving. And then if we try to redirect from blog 2, it'll no longer work. And that's it for using Payload CMS for redirects. Using the Redirects plugin allows you to help users find the content you want them to find while also informing search engines that your site structure may be changing temporarily or permanently. This helps you improve your website's usability as well as helping with SEO. If you found this video helpful, please like it and share it with others who might also find it useful. Check to make sure you're subscribed to my channel and receiving notifications so you never miss when I release more content around Payload CMS, Next.js, and more. If you have suggestions or questions, please leave those in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.